So let's go into processes. So as a part of what we talked about already, we talked about processes and how processes work. So this will be over on your next page in your workbook. So your highest priority as a manager, we've already talked about, is to define your processes. Why do we do processes? Well, I tell people, number one, repeatability creates profitability. The more we're able to repeat something, the more it becomes a habit. And are you more efficient when you're working out of habit rather than thinking about things? Absolutely. So habit is where you want to go. You want to get to a point where I don't have to think about it, I just do it. And the only way you can do that is repeating something over and over again until you get it to a point where you don't have to think about it. How many people in here has ever driven a standard transmission vehicle? Anybody? Anybody remember the very first time you drove a standard transmission car? Okay. How was that? It was pretty ugly, wasn't it? Okay, and so the first time, because when you drive a standard transmission car, right, the first thing you realize is that there's 3 pedals and you only have 2 feet. Okay, so you have to start thinking about how to drive it. I got to push the clutch down. I got to let the brake up, and as I let the brake up, I got to push on the accelerator and let the clutch up, right? And then this is what makes this car move. Okay, so in the beginning it was a pretty ugly process. How many of you drive a standard transmission car today better than you did the very first time you did it? God, I see people shaving, putting on makeup, driving cars, because now it's not. They don't need to do what? They don't need to think about it. It is just a habit. It's just a mental process. They just do it that way. How many people remember the first time you drove one? Because see, a lot of you guys remembered knew how to drive when it was on the floor and there was actually a pattern that showed you that reverse was over here. How many people remember when the shifter was on the column? I'm going to date myself. Okay, well now with that, a whole other thing. Okay, all right, so for some of you guys didn't know it, but there didn't used to be a shifter down here. It was up here. Why? I have no idea. But it was more complex than it was when they put it on the floor. But I go back again. How many of you, it's probably been 50 years since any of you drove one that had it with 3 on the tree is what it was called, right? So on the column. But I would tell you that most of you that learned how to drive one could instantly get back in a car that had a shifter on the column, and in just a moment's worth of time you would remember all of the different, because they didn't have a pattern on it. You had to remember where everything was. All I'm saying again, it's that habit. We do something over and over again and it becomes habit. Repetition is what we want to try to do in our dealership. Everything we do, we want to repeat it over and over and over again. It's like mathematics. When you were in school, the teacher was working on your multiplication tables with you. She didn't say, okay, well, 2 times 2 is what? 4. Okay, you got it. Okay. And she didn't just do that one time. How many times did she go back over the 2s and then the 3s and the 4s? So we know that 2 times 2 is what? 4. 4 times 4 is 16. Okay, 8 times 8 is 64. 12 times 12 is 144. 13 times 12 is 12 more than 144, right? Okay, because where did the teacher stop at, Linda? 12s, okay? And I tell people all the way up to there, we got it. Just keep asking me, Bob. And 13 times, I don't know. 12 more than 144, whatever that number is, okay? So I tell people, it doesn't mean that we can't figure it out, but it takes us a moment to do what? Think about it. When you think, you start burning time. Okay, what we're trying to do always in our business is we want to have people do it without thought. And the only way you can get there is through repetition, and that's what processes do. I don't have to think about what we're going to do when a piece of work comes into one of our shops, or I don't have to think about when the stocking order comes in. I've done it so many times, I just know at this time during the day, we put up the stocking order. At this time during the week, we do cycle counts on this particular cabinet. At this time during the week, or in the morning when we first come in, we front and face all of our shelves in the parts. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to tell you to do it. We've done it every time. We keep doing it over and over again. And when you come in the morning, you just do what? You just do it without thought. That's what we're trying to do when we do that through processes. Reasons for documenting processes: when you're adding or training employees, if you got good processes, it's easier to add an employee or it's easier to train an employee. If you want to add an employee but you don't have good processes in place, then when you bring somebody new on, they say, well, I just need you to follow Billy around for a week and just do what Billy does. Billy's an idiot. I don't want you to follow Billy, right? See, that's a lot of dealers' training method. We'll follow around Bob, right? He doesn't do much, so you won't be in his way. Okay, well, I don't want my new guy to take on the characteristics of who? Of Bob. So if you've got good processes in place to say, okay, on your first day in the shop, you're going to be spending your time learning the software, Right? So you're going to spend a day with the service manager as he's opening work orders and closing work orders. As he's putting service notes in, I want you to spend a day here. The second thing I want you to do is I want you to go out and I want you to work beside the service coordinator. Oh yes, bring your wet gear because it is a nasty, dirty job. But you as a technician, you're going to spend a day working with the service coordinator. Why would I have a technician instead of starting to turn a wrench? Why would I have him work with the service coordinator for a day? Julie, how difficult is it to be a service coordinator? It's pretty difficult. It's one of my lowest paid positions in a dealership, but it's the most important position. And I want a technician to work beside the person that's doing it and making it all happen for them. Right? It'd be like having the waiter spend the day being a busboy or busgirl. I want you to do it because now, when the service coordinator is busy, you have an appreciation for it. Right? You have an appreciation for what they do. Then I want you to go spend the day working with my best technician. And you're going to shadow them, and you're going to see what they do. Don't talk a lot because your best technicians typically are not real social people. They actually hate people. Okay, you understand that, right? I tell people it's like IT people. The reason they like computers, they don't enjoy humans. Right? So I tell people, but I need you to mirror, not my worst technician. I need you to spend the day mirroring my what? And just watch. Ask a few questions along the way and do that. Then on Thursday, because we've got 3 days done now we're going to get you back and we're going to get you started doing what? Doing work. So I've got it already planned out. They don't come in and bring their tools in and just start. I got to teach them about how important is it for them to learn the software. Just the basics, putting service notes in, writing things up and things like this. I got to have them go through those processes and doing it. So again, that's part of what we're trying to do. Do you guys have a training process for a new employee in each one of your positions? If you don't, got to be working on that, and we'll help you with that. Gives your dealership the ability to get loans. People say, why is this important? Why is it if we want to grow our dealership, why is it important that the Wells Fargo or TCF Inventory Finance or Kubota or Mahindra Finance will give us more money to expand our inventory? Right? It's easier to get more money when you sit down with a banker or somebody that loans money out and show them all your what? Processes. Well, how do you guys do business? I don't really understand much about this. Well, I don't know. We just do it. And I need another $200,000 to do it. Well, you're not going to get that. Okay? So I tell people again, the better your processes are, the better it is, the easier it is to get a loan. Your profits will be greater. We're in business to make what? Anybody confused with that? We're in business to make what? Money. We can say it again. How much? Obscene amounts. Okay, I tell people I've had money, I've not had money. Is it better to have it? Oh yes, it's better to have it. Okay, I tell people, how do you have more money? You define and have better what? Processes. It's like our shops. I mean, Brian's not here this morning, but Brian could take a shop that's recovering at 70%, and in a week we'll have them at 90 to 100% recovery. Have the technician sitting there pushing out, an 8-level technician, giving me 12 billable hours a day in an 8-hour day. It's not because it's magic, it's just because we've got good processes in place. And how many people in here, if you've got a technician, it's a good technician that's billing out 10 hours in an 8-hour day, how many people feel like you're going to start being profitable? Okay, you can't make any money in the shop if you're at 70%. You can make a ton of money if you're at 100, 90 to 100 to 110%. So it makes your profits greater. How about the same thing in sale or at the parts counter? How many people in here have good processes in the parts counter? Are you guys teaching your people how to cross-sell and upsell? Or do your parts people think their primary job is to do what? That you came in for a part, I gave you a what? A part, you're one part. Yeah, we wouldn't want to do two, would it? Because it screws up everything. It screws up our inventory, right? So you came for a part, I gave you a part, and you left, and I've done my what? No, you haven't done your job, because your job was to do what? Not have them take one part, but have them take two. Upselling and cross-selling is critical. Most of your parts people think their job is to do just what you explained. Well, Bob, they came in for a part, I treated them well, and they left with a part. I need them to leave with two parts, right? That's what we call cross-selling and upselling. So again, my profits would be greater, and the same thing in sales. When people talk about sales, David's a good example with Paul. Paul was a brand new salesperson. How'd Paul do? Okay, Paul did well because we had some processes in place. Here's who you call. Here's what you talk to him about. He came to the sales boot camp. But again, so he's producing well as a part of what he's doing down there. And then again, you monitor and detect problems. So I tell people, if you've got good processes in place, if something goes wrong, you don't blame your people. Because I tell people, again, we manage processes. Processes manage people, and we coach people. Does that make sense? So your processes actually manage people. I don't have to manage my people if I got good processes, because the processes manage the person, and our primary job is to do what? Coach the people that are being managed by the process. If somebody is terminated, I don't have to terminate them. The process terminates them. If you're in my shop and you're not consistently at 85% efficiency as a B-level technician, you already know in my shop that you're not going to be able to stay in my shop. Because that's a part of our process. You have to be at least here. Right? If you're in sales and I have a sales goal for you, you don't hit your sales goal, you're not even trying to hit your sales goal, my process dictates that you're no longer going to be here. So when I say, guys, you're not hitting your numbers, while I'm trying, I know you're trying, but the process is, we laid this out when you started, this is the level of activity you had, and it's just not working. So why don't we do this? Let's just go ahead and say, it's not working for you, it's not working for us, let's go ahead and move this on. Wasn't me, I want to keep you. Not really. But my process dictates the fact that it's time for you to go. So I tell people, again, processes let you go through that, and you do those, and as a part of your processes, what's a part of your people processes? Your employee handbook. How many people have an employee handbook? Okay, so if you don't, you guys have it in the toolbox. If you don't, get with us, we'll do it. But really, your employee handbook is your process for your people in hiring, firing, disciplining, vacations, and things like this. An employee handbook is your staffing, your people process is how you go through and do that. So it lets me go through and monitor. If something's going wrong or something's not going right, I can go back and look at the process and say, well, it broke down here. We had a customer call that was upset because nobody's called them in the last week and a half. Okay, well then I know in my process it went wrong in the very beginning, because in our service process we have to look at everything within 24 hours after it comes in, and then we have to reach out and make a call to the customer. Even if we don't know what's wrong with it yet, within 24 hours in our process, we reach out and touch the customer. And I may have to say, guys, we've looked at it, we're not sure what you need, but I just wanted to reach out and let you know that. If you touch the customer earlier, what does the customer stop doing to you? Calling. How many people have customers call you and call you and call you? Said, well, it's going to be 2 weeks before we get to it. And what do they do on Wednesday of the week they dropped it off? I just want to see where you're at on that. If we make that first call in 24 hours, I eliminate a ton of calls that I get in my service department. So it just lets me know if a customer calls and said, I haven't heard anything in 2 weeks or in a week or whatever, what part of my process broke down? In the very beginning, we broke down right there. Okay, so it lets me go back and look at those things. All right?